In yesterday's monologue, I was talking about why I do what I do and the conversations that I would like to have with my son and all those people who question that this is all nonsense, that they say it's just conspiracies, it's a theory, it's rubbish, I can't entertain it, the government couldn't be this way, there's no agenda, it's just the modern way of life, get over it. Today I want to talk about why I think farming and food are the main issues that we should be really considering. And there's a whole load of other bits and pieces which funnel into that, including what they're spraying in the skies. I've been interested, as I mentioned in yesterday's monologue, in the landscape, the heritage and the nature of the country that I live in. I'm an Englishman, I'm a proud Englishman. And in the past, as I said yesterday, I've been travelling around the country and you'll see in my videos that under the guise of the Bald Explorer, I was exploring the heritage and the big houses, the churches, and learning about farming. And we know that farming is, of course, where we get our food from. And that originally humans, I suppose, we were hunter-gatherers, and we hunted and we gathered, and then at some point we thought that blow this for a bowl of soup, I'm going to actually capture some animals, put them in some fencing and breed them so I don't have to keep going charging after them, and see if that works. And the same with plants and berries and seeds and things that we were eating. We realized that actually if we were to cultivate these things ourselves rather than just let chance or nature provide for us, then we wouldn't have to charge about. It would mean that we would be in one place and slowly we could build a bunch of people, let's call it a community for the sake of argument, and we'll help one another. And perhaps if we grow sufficient foods in our little farmsteads, the surplus we could sell or trade with others. And of course, this is what happened until we came to a point in which the farming became a way of life, of course, for people, and pretty much continued like that, a way of life, a cohesive element that involved pretty much everybody in the locality. And if you go back around England and you look at the villages and the original village makeup of how villages came together, invariably you may have had a landowner, particularly after 1066, in which the land, we had the barons and they divided up the land and people were managing it for you. But food was, of course, the most essential thing. Creating food, growing food, providing food, and, of course, I suppose, security. So people would be there to work not only for themselves, for their own meagre amounts of food, but also for those landowners on a strip basis. Strip farming, or fields were divided into strips, and then the landowners' fields were farmed as well. And so that everybody in that village was basically working together, all under different hierarchy statuses, some people, and those that weren't necessarily farming were doing related things, such as the blacksmith who was providing metalwork, and bakers who were doing the baking, obviously, and the candlestick maker, I can't even say it now, the the cloth makers, haberdasheries. I got there in the end. All these different crafts, carpenters. And of course you had the guilds coming up who would then people would make masterpieces, and would, the guilds there as a form of early union, if you like, in order to ensure quality. That was the essence of this. Now I'm paraphrasing this, and there'll be nuances within this, and historians can easily correct me, but that's basically what was going on. But the rural life economy was the essential thing for everybody. Although people did move into the cities, and more so once technology started to come in with the traction engines and utilising water and steam and so forth, and the larger industries, and of course people were moving into there because machinery was taking away the men's work from the land. Food was still absolutely vital, however it was produced, however it was farmed. Now, we had a situation, and again, I'm putting this in extremely simple terms because I have written no script and I have no notes, and I want to talk about this because I'm interested in this from a humanity point of view and why farming is so essential to where we are. So we had a system effectively for pretty much all of humanity, certainly since we started farming, that everybody was connected in some way to the rural economy, to farming, to food. And as the cities and the towns and the cities began to grow, people had jobs that were unrelated to farming, but they still needed to eat. And the farms needed to provide this, and technology came in and started to be able to become more profitable, if you like, rather than just subsistent. And the farms became sustainable. But these were small farms situated around the villages and around the towns and around the cities, providing in a small way local seasonal food of reasonable quality, varying quality depending on the attitude of the farmer. And as we got into technology and the landowners deciding actually we will enclose the land and throw the commoners off the commons, we started to see the farming industry, if you can call it that at that time, the rural economy, let's just call it that, turn into an industry. And it became a business. And technology started to strip away very much the meaning of what farming really was. For many, it was a way of life. They knew no different. A farm would be passed on to son or daughter, and many generations of farmers would farm the same land. Now, they may be tenant farmers and they would carry on that tenant farm. Some may be able to buy their land, or the landowners would have tenants on them, and some may be able to buy it from them, a small section and what have you. But essentially, a farming and rural way of life continued for century after century after century. And the technology came in extremely slowly. People were reluctant to change, and they'd honed their skills, and they knew by the seasons what was the best thing to do and how to grow and when to grow it and all of that. It was hard and it was back-breaking work, but communities would be small and people were there to look after one another. And as that technology has advanced, like so much in the modern world, the farming communities became more atomized. Fewer people worked on the farm because you could have technology doing it, to the point that you now have these, as we know, these major farms, massive, great big farms, with barely anybody actually touching the soil, all done by tractor, completely devoid from the connection with nature. And then you saw the industrial side go ballistic, particularly after the war, the Second World War, with the agricultural industry saying, well, we can step in and help you here. If you have bigger fields and you spray our chemicals, you can get bigger yields with these particular seeds. And if you buy into our big equipment, you can have fewer people working, it'll be less expensive for you, and you'll make more money. And farming has been pushed into this direction, and hand in hand with that has been the supermarkets, the rising up of the supermarkets, which have, on the one hand, seem to be the main market, the main endpoint market for the consumer to go and buy farm-related produce. But the middle people between the supermarket and the farmers were the processors. And the processing has come to such an extent that everybody's been chasing this bottom line to make food the cheapest it could possibly be, so that we see food becoming adulterated with petrochemicals and sweeteners and flavourings and things to keep things on the shelf a bit longer. We've seen the packaging enticing people to buy foods that actually have very little nutrients in them. And then in steps the advertising industry that is there to back up these processing and the supermarket plants to say our food is the best and we'll keep it really cheap and it's as good for you today as it's always been. But it can't possibly be as good for you today as it's always been, because in the past it was a natural product that came out of the ground, and now it's a highly processed product with preservatives and flavourings and colourings and all sorts of other bits and pieces in it, and being sold at a ridiculously low price, so that the value of food and the abundance of it has been artificially created, so that people no longer think of food as the most important thing in their lives. And it used to be food production, keeping ourselves alive, nourishing our bodies was the most important. And you might argue, oh, but technology has now made it that we don't have to worry about food. Food is plentiful, it's all over the place, it's everywhere. But what is it you're eating? What is it that you're eating? These big corporations, these large industries, all are working in harmony with one another. So the farming that is producing the food, that is now producing something that is really not a food, it's producing a commodity, the large scale I'm talking about. They're producing a commodity. It's being processed into something which is, again, another commodity, a commercial food stuff that's artificial. It's in a box with bright colours on it. It's incredibly cheap, and it's being sold through a marketplace that has a huge amount of this stuff that makes you believe that everything you need is there, with these claims that this is healthy and good for you and fortified with this and it's all of the other, when it turns out that actually it's full of petrochemicals, it's full of all this additional content that is not nutritional or of any benefit to your system. You have other industries promoting this, the mainstream media with the advertising, promoting this. You have the as I said before, the big agrochemicals saying, yeah, you can spray all this and it's perfectly safe, and yet we've discovered, of course, that's not safe. And then when people are not being nutrient full and they're getting ill, you have the other industry, the medical industry, going, oh, we'll look after you because we've got all the white pills. Yeah, they come with a few side effects, which you may as well say they are effects of taking these pills. They're not just side effects, they have these effects. And all the holistic remedies have been poo-pooed and knocked aside because science and technology is the only thing. It's the new Bible, it's the new religion that everybody must adhere to. And so all these large companies are in there, and it seems to me that they're all working hand in glove with one another in order to keep humanity down. And this relates to everything I was saying in yesterday's monologue about the fact that, yes, I believe there are conspiracies going on, and it may be all sorts of nefarious reasons, But a lot of it is to do with the money, follow the money in all of this. Farming is the most important thing that we should be doing, creating wholesome, real food for people. There is nothing better for people than locally produced, seasonally correct food that doesn't have to travel very far, that is fresh and is organic and unadulterated with all these petrochemicals and things. And as people start to realize and unfold, food is not the big problem that it is made out to be. It's so difficult to grow food. We need to have big farmers and you're not allowed on the land and all of this. We're now beginning to realize that our history has been turned upside down and we've been lied to. The impression that food, although it is abundant in all this sort of fast food takeaway and you can ring it up and have it delivered to you instantly, or it can just turn up in some magical box that you stick into a nuclear device called a microwave and fill it full of radiation and other ionizing poisons and things. In actual fact, we've been sort of told, oh no, it's difficult and it's very hard. But actually, farming is not as difficult as it's being made out to be. Again, there are processes that have been hidden and occulted, and farmers have been pushed by government, by big corporations to do it in one particular way. But we're seeing with the regenerative farming movements, with small independents, that actually there's very much innovative, clever and abundant ways of growing. Electroculture, for example. There is many ways of using predator insects against insects which attack a crop, which will mean you don't need the pesticides, the herbicides, the insecticides, the poisons that you need to run. If people were to eat more healthy foods and not buy the big commercial supermarket, buy one, get one free, heated up in a microwave, we wouldn't need to see in the landscape farms producing monocrops, one type of crop which is there to produce highly processed foods. We wouldn't need to spray them. We wouldn't need to see the insects, the birds, the wildlife decimated. We wouldn't need to have this nonsense where we actually have to go and rewild certain things and knock farms out of existence. Because farming and wildlife can work symbiotically together. It's been proven, it works, but because, again, everything's been pushed down this one narrow band, this is the way we do it, and anybody else who's got an alternative idea is wrong, is so limiting and so unnatural and so detrimental to human life that if we don't make a call to change the way that farming is being done, bring people back to the land, not in a highly back-breaking nature, use machinery and technology, but in a smaller way, produce more farms. We need millions of farmers across the land, not fewer. We need smaller farms across the land, not bigger. We need more people to connect with the earth, with this amazing planet, respect the food that is there to make us healthy, instead of eating this petrochemical, synthetic nonsense that's being pushed down at us as it's the only way. The problem is that the main public have been so blindsided, they have been so propagandized by the commercials on the television, by the nonsense that's been spat out by the MPs and government and by these big corporations. They do not believe that there is a more wholesome, holistic and sensible way of doing it. And yet there is, and if we don't start thinking about farming in the proper way, then I'm afraid to say the human race will be depopulated because of all the different illnesses that will be coming. And we need to make a stand against it. Farming, and real farming, small farming, encouraging young people and giving them access to the land so that they can care and do animal husbandry and to grow the necessary foods that we need across the board, and not have this nonsense about man-made global warming and the animals fart and the eating meat is bad and all this complete utter hogwash. Farming, proper, real, genuine farming and eating local, fresh food is where we've got to get back to. Otherwise we are doomed. And I don't think we need to be. So that's my take on the importance and the merits of farming. And as I said yesterday, I don't want to lead people. I don't want to stand for anything. I don't want to have power or influence. I'd be quite happy to end my days on a small holding, smoking my pipe, sitting in a little shepherd's hut, tending to some plants and just getting on with life. And I think there are thousands, if not millions of others who also feel the same way. Thank you for watching.